engagement and amenities that matter. So what I'd love to do is invite up, we have two of our speakers. I'm actually going to be part of this panel as well. So please join me in welcoming up. We have Brent Gibaldo. He's the VP of Operations with Nexton and Brookfield. We also have Uri Man, who's the Executive Vice President for Tejas Companies, and he's also the CEO of Lagoon Development Companies. Backgrounds on both of them, pretty phenomenal. If you look at actually Brent, not only has he been with Nexton for quite a long time, but I looked back in your bio, you were also the legislative director for the U.S. House of Representatives. That was pretty impressive. And then Uri's got like about 1,000 awards behind him. He's done quite a bit, a lot of accomplishments, but he was the Young Leader of the Year Award. He served on the board of several different charities. We have some stellar guys sitting in front of us. So we're going to dive right into our presentation. I'm going to start out just by talking a little bit about just kind of very quickly consumer trends. So let's kind of get right in there. So this is our introduction, and I'm going to go quick. These are our great speakers today. But just as we dive in, 56% will actually pay at least a 5% premium for master plan. So you're sitting in the right room and really getting that right. And a master plan really will hold stronger values during soft and strong market terms. I mean, as you saw, as Nick had showed, you'll actually see the values are greater, but not only that, though, but your absorptions are greater. And when we look at actually personal success, like what means something to me, you heard a lot of this yesterday, it's fitness, and then great ways to spend time with family. The trend behind fitness rooms, it really is, it's about fitness, it's about attractive community design. When we look at all the things that people really want in their community, you can see the top 3 here, and it is exterior design, and we talked about that in the 10 principles, it's healthy living, and it's high-speed technology. So when we talk about attractive community design, one of the big things we're seeing is a huge trend going towards modern, but also still those true, authentic, great architectural styles that everybody wants to see in their communities. I've been doing this research now for about 15 years, and Craftsman is always #1, but everybody loves that cute bungalow neighborhood. But we're starting to see other architectural styles pop up there, like modern, transitional, and things like that. So if you look at those top 5, I'm sure you're seeing a lot of those in your master plans these days. The other big thing is, we talked about this for single family for rent. Small does not have to be ugly. So really just getting charming architecture, even in that 200 plus price point, anything under 300,000 right now is selling well just about everywhere. But even in our outdoor spaces, we're starting to see just some edgy, fun, cool spaces, lots of glass. The #1 thing I hear in focus groups is, I want more light in everything I do, whether it's under recommended or not. The trends for wellness and healthy living for sure, whether it's indoors or outdoors, you know, the whole house with fresh air, and also whole house clean water, that's 92% or greater. I know it should be that in all air quality, but it's not. And so that's really a big deal. And just planning for those outdoor spaces for yoga and things that kind of create better mental wellness. This is a big one. Not just children care, but adult care. The average cost to take care of your parents, and by the way, they're living longer, it's about a year and a half more for every decade, but you'll actually see for child care and for adult care is about 10 to 20,000 a month. That's a huge number. So really thinking of new ways to do that and having people come into their home, and they do want to be with family. Covered outdoor space, we talked about yesterday, so just different ways to bring people outdoors, especially post-COVID. All entertainment really happens outdoors, right, for the most part, so just creating spaces like that. But even other amenities that people are looking for in their club amenities, you'll actually see, so the Wi-Fi cafe, retail anything, just even a small space, general store or something like that. The fitness room, once again, come comes up, full service bar, group fitness programs and things like that. So just that place, that third place, that there, I think that we talked about yesterday. Warp speed inside and out for sure. Not only do we see a lot more online social, but when we look at sports that are catapulting online, I mean, these are big scholarships, like $1 million scholarships, $1 million awards that are now going to our kids for some of that stuff. But at the same time, we also want to get them outdoor. I can't tell you how many Masterplanned brainstorming sessions where we all talk about getting unplugged. That's a huge, huge deal. And where do we want them to go and where do they want to go? It's walking trails first, of course, we all know that. Lake, pond, stream, those kinds of things. Children's parks, dog parks. We not only ask do they want them, but will they pay for them in their HOA? Because I think that's a pretty big deal. So just the outdoor fitness and interesting trail systems. Your trails, sidewalks, you name it, they want landscaping on both sides for sure. So make those interesting. We're gonna actually, Uri's gonna talk a lot about Moral and some of the things going on with Crystal Lagoons. But the one things I want to do on behalf of him is they sell and they sell well and the absorptions are there to show it. There's actually annually for 220, they had almost 900 sales. And certainly it's a great place to be. And then last but not least, just the power of purpose. I mean, people not only want to see that there's great engagement, they want to be a part of that engagement. So when we look to the calendar of events and the things that we think that they want to do, the best thing that you can do is involve them and say, hey, you help write the calendar, you help actually plan the events, and put an ambassador in place for every 100 to 400 homes that you're selling. And they'll feel like they just got nominated president for that district. And it's a really great way to sort of keep your communities involved. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brent.
Thanks, Molly. Great to see everyone here today. So I want to just hit a couple topics related to amenities and really this notion of engagement with the residents. And so this first example, this was our first amenity at Nexon. It was our first community park. But the thing that, take a step back, where Nexon was located, particularly when we opened about 10 years ago, this was a value market. So keeping our amenity budgets low, particularly our maintenance budgets and what the burden would be on the HOA, as low as possible was a major goal. And so as we looked at this first park area, being in the low country, stormwater management is a critical element to what we do. And so we looked at the original plan for this area was to do a park that was going to take up a lake that was going to take up about 70% of where this green space is. But we were able to work with the county and get them to agree to do this depressed green area, which allowed for the occasion of a major storm event that the rainwater would actually rise up and fill in that green area. But the vast majority of the time, you had a green surface that people could play on. And the neat story about this was we opened this in about 2014, and the next 4 years we had a 100-year storm event each year. I think we had 1 year where we had a 1,000-year storm event. And a lot of our competitors saw major flooding problems within their communities, whereas in our community, we handled these storm events without any problem. This became a great sense of civic pride within the community and really became a selling point that people were looking for homes. A major question we get is what's flooding like in this area? And this pond and this park area is a great example of how we were able to work that into an amenity and make it a sense of pride for the residents.
And Brent, is that an amphitheater? It looks like there's kind of seating and terracing down.
So those are actually how the stormwater hears up.
Okay.
If we have those random, like you can sit on. And when I say once a year, twice a year, maybe it gets to that second level. Most of the time the water stays at that level.
Old place to hang out.
So on that same vein, this is something I wanted to share with people, and I won't bore you all too much with the details, but if anyone's interested, happy to talk about it afterwards. But again, in the low country, about 1,000, our community is 5,000 acres. We have about 1,000 acres of protected wetlands. And most of these wetlands are actually some of the driest property on the site, but it's all former pine plantation. And so we've got all these industrial pine trees, and it's actually a very unhealthy forest condition because you have a monolithic silviculture condition. We're able to work with the Army Corps of Engineers to allow us to go in and thin out this forest. And by thinning out the forest, we're able to get more diversity of hardwood growth, which is better for the environment, better for the soil, helps with stormwater retention and drainage issues. And this too has become a major component of our residents. We now have a town forester, so as you might have a town architect or your lifestyle director, Nexton has a town forester. He's a local forester who comes, gives nature talks and educational opportunities to our residents. And we actually generate a few $100,000 a year in revenue off of this timber operation, which we then use for landscaping along our parkway. It's, again, if you think about it, particularly with the younger home buyers, having the community mean something more than just a place to live, but rather it's doing something that's progressive and sort of advancing things. It's become a real sort of strong selling point for us.
And I have to believe it adds a lot of character to the community, and by the way, any home that's up against, trees and some of that, it's a $25,000 to $50,000 premium too, so.
And the beautiful part about this is you can kind of see it, what an industrial tree farm looks like. It's kind of these straight rows, trees are really tight, there's actually very little green. When you have storm events, they're more likely to fall over, things like that. But as you thin those out, you start to get hardwoods, oak trees, things like that. It's a much nicer.
So great.
So changing topics, the other thing we want to talk about was this notion of retail and commercial uses as an amenity for your community. And so Nexton, one of the things that makes it a little unique is the commercial component is almost as significant as the residential component. And so when we launched our first retail center, creating a green space that would be sort of at the centerpiece, it's ironically called this Nexton Square since the green space is a triangle. But this really has become, for our residents, a major gathering place. And we talk a lot about programming and activating spaces. And so we do our Christmas tree lighting ceremony here. And that helps the retail businesses around it, but it also is something that all residents come to. There's, Friday night, Saturday night, outside music, things like that. And then all of these restaurants and the different health and wellness providers that are in this retail center, those are all amenities essentially for our residents. So the yoga studio, the fitness clubs, obviously the restaurants, and those are all things that the HOA isn't having to provide because it's being done by a for-profit organization.
And you want to be part of that. I mean, that looks like fun.
Mm-hmm. Which then leads to kind of our next sort of retail meets amenity, which we had a lot of conversations yesterday about pickleball. And pickleball is obviously exploding, and so we're getting ready to break ground on what will be a pickle bar, which is pickleball meets a restaurant. Think of sort of Top Golf for pickleball. This has happened in a few places. I really enjoyed one of the talks yesterday about the importance of not taking partner risk in master planning communities. I think we can all relate to that. I always say we can't afford to have one mistake because we'll be left with it for the next 10 years. And so this was a bit of a challenge because there aren't a lot of experienced pickleball restaurant operators out there, but we did find a group that we got very comfortable with. And what's neat about this is they're really using this, obviously it's a restaurant, they can do corporate events, things like that, but then during the daytime hours and even some evenings, they're going to do pickleball clinics and leagues and tournaments and things like that. So it's really a 18-hour day type of facility. If you go to the next slide, people can see the layout a little bit. And so again, it's offering a full range of things for our residents. It's going to be that recreational opportunity, it's a dining experience, but even for this is located in one of our commercial cores, it's great for the businesses all around it because it's offering them yet another amenity. So we're excited about this. And for those who haven't played pickleball, I think everyone's heard it is a lot of fun. It is quite addictive. And what's really interesting is it's unlike a lot of other sports. It's you can socialize and have a lot of fun doing it, but at the same time, it can be kind of a serious workout and kind of get your exercise in.
Pretty awesome.
And then the last thing I want to talk about, so now we're kind of taking everything we've learned over the last few years, and our next phase, Midtown Nexton, is about 1,000 acres, the site that you're looking at. And going back to what we were just talking about, this notion of using the walking trails as kind of the organizing element. So we were talking about it the other day. We've always done the multi-purpose trails along the main roads and spine roads and things like that, but what we started to realize was, what is that trail experience really like for people? How pleasant is it? Is it got landscaping on both sides? Are they getting away from cars? We think about if you're having friends in from out of town for dinner, where do you go for a walk after dinner? Where are you going to go show them in your neighborhood as a sense of pride what that experience is going to be like? And so again, stormwater, water management in our part of the world is something very important. So we had a major blueway system that had to run through the community. So running that multi-purpose trail along that blueway system. Then we had a major power line easement that ran north to south through the community. So we said, okay, let's see if we can work with the utility company. Instead of just turning our back to that power line easement, can we run the trail system through that as well? And then in our central core, our denser, more commercial area, can we run a third trail system right through there that sort of knits it all together? And then using those three as the organizing elements, start to think about where we want to activate and amenitize areas. Go to the next one, also good. So then we use that to identify where our 4 major hubs would be. So one hub is our sort of commercial district, and that's where we're going to have a little bit of retail, similar to what you saw before. We're fortunate this is directly across the street from a 40-acre. Our state's medical university is building a hospital campus there, so we'll have some daytime employment activity there, having this retail core there. Then the second hub was our first built amenity in this space, the Midtown Club. It's our pool, sports courts, fitness center, outdoor areas, those types of things. Then the third will be our next amenity area that comes online. And then the fourth was sort of this crossroads where a number of these trails were coming in together. And the way I like to think about it is these trail systems will be like the expressway for the kids on bicycles. You know, it's one thing to let your kids take off on their bikes, but know they're going to be going through neighborhood streets. But if you can know they're going to be on a trail system the entire time, and it'll be a lot safer, they go from one end of the neighborhood to the other. And keep in mind, this is 1,000 acres, so there's about 3,500 units planted here. So it's a pretty significant area we're talking about that kids will be able to get from one area to the other, as will adults and parents. And then we sort of took that and go to the next one. Sort of then really laying out all the different amenities. So really thinking about all the things people are going to need in their life, and this notion of what is their amenity experience like, not when they get to the amenity, but even how they get to the amenity. So are they walking there? Are they biking there? One of the things that I haven't heard mentioned, but it's really popular in our area is golf carts. And golf carts are all the rage. I always say next it'll be a major success if we have our 2 working parents living there, but they downsize to 1 car. Because their other one is a golf cart that one of the 2 parents may work in the community where they can get around on a golf cart half time. And if you've ever lived in an environment where you can golf cart around places, it's a lot more fun than having to hop in your car all the time. Takes up less parking, easier use. But going back to this, thinking through where all these different amenities and uses going to need. So obviously you need your playgrounds and things like that, your different dog parks, big dog parks, little dog parks, swimming opportunities, working outside, sort of the mixed use nature of the community is very important to us. Really trying to create an environment where people want to put their businesses, whether they're working from home or working in one of our commercial areas, interfacing with our stormwater ponds, since that's a major interaction. And then the stadium seating is really, it's very flat where we are. And so one of the things that we found is quite popular is we'll do little sort of raised mounds areas and create those amphitheaters that you talked about. But clustering these all together in certain areas where we can really activate them and really energize them. And you can see most of them are affiliated or connected to one of these different trail systems building. So the sort of amenity experience begins once you leave your home and you hop on your bike and start walking to it. And even little things like where our school site's going to be, putting the dog park in close proximity to that school site. So you think about it in the morning routine, if you're walking the children to school or picking them up after school, where you can take the dog for a walk. Or if you get there early, you take the dog there, the dog runs for a little bit, then you pick up the kids, you drop the kids off there. So just trying to be a little bit more thoughtful about not what always the amenity is, but where do you place it, how do people get there, what that experience is like, and then obviously making the amenity a special experience for folks.
Well, I hate to keep bringing this back to just the financial implication, and that certainly has to be an important part of this. But everybody enjoys an amenity, and there's a premium for being next to an amenity, right? And so having these little surprises around every corner, I mean, that's what makes a place as opposed to just a tract, you know?
Well, that's the thing too. A lot of this was pushed for practical reasons. You know, we've all done this before where you get going on a big project and you realize you spend a lot of money on those first couple of amenities, and then as you get down there, you just don't quite have money in the budget. We purposely did this so we could really allocate the dollars to make sure we were budgeting things properly and sort of maintain the standard that we wanted throughout the life of the project.
Do you tend to plan your amenities or at least the experiences around how you program the residential? So if it's more family oriented, do you pull the more family oriented amenities towards those areas, or?
Definitely. We a lot of segmentations of different product types, think about what's attractive an active adult versus a family.
Sure.
So where you put the playgrounds, obviously, is going to be impacted and influenced by that. We have a pool that's going to have more of a resort feeling, catering more probably to families. But then we're going to do a couple Serenity pools that'll be a little bit calmer, so we'll sort of place those. So definitely that works into the process of who you think the residents will be in that meeting area.
Nice, nice. Okay, how about you, Uri? Do you want to control that guy? You bet.
Sure. Thanks for your time, by the way, I love that pickleball.
Yeah.
Bar idea, it's amazing, so.
I can't believe how much pickleball
I'm sure
is
it's
taken up.
How many courts will you have?
That's gonna have, I think, 7, because they have 3 indoors.
So you can major tournaments.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. So a little bit about our company. Tejas has been around for 25 years. We're operating only in Houston. We're the top developer of single-family lots in the Houston market in the last 2 years. We've developed over 30,000 lots to date. We currently have 11 active communities and typically have about 15 to 20,000 lots in our pipeline. So we make up about 10% of the market. Today I'll talk about what a residential Crystal Lagoon is, how the lagoon can be used for a mixed-use entertainment district as part of a master-planned community, some new opportunities that the lagoons actually create, and I'll show you a new pop-up beach festival that we just had at the lagoon, and then kind of where we're going with this concept, which will be new independent paid access lagoons. So this is our first Crystal Lagoon, which we built in Humboldt, which is in here in Houston. And it's a 2-acre Crystal Lagoon as part of an 8-acre amenity village. And this was really a beta test to see how our builders would react to having this type of amenity. Would they be willing to pay a little bit more on a front foot basis? And would the residents really be excited about living in this community? And it's really checked the boxes in terms of what it's supposed to do. We're able to sell close to 900 homes in this community last year. So this project was originally underwritten to be sold over 8 to 9 years, and all the lots have been sold in 3 years. Of course, part of it is the function of the market. But the residents, of course, they love the amenity, and we're able to get about 1,000% increase in foot traffic to the models that are in this community compared to our other communities that don't have a lagoon. So it definitely has a big impact on bringing a lot more people, curious people, and it creates a life cycle of marketing events. From the day that you announce the lagoon, to you start construction, you start filling the lagoon with water, when you open the lagoon, every one of those opportunities creates a great opportunity for you to invite the general public, have massive events that create a lot of sensational advertising and PR. And this project, 2,500 lots, we probably will never build a lagoon this small again. It's 2 acres of water, which to give you a sense is about 2 NFL football fields. But it's really done what it was supposed to do here in terms of making this project very successful for us. We realized.
You're going to ask, why not that small? Because I actually found that fascinating.
Well, you have a machine room that's amortized over the size of the lagoon.
Okay.
And you can create more perimeter, and you can create more usable space, and you can have more revenue that can come in from events and so forth. At this lagoon, we do about 20 weddings a year right now, going up to 30 probably next year. And you want to have a larger perimeter so that you can take advantage of different amenities, which I'll explain now.
Well, and this feels huge. And the one thing I would note is think about how coastal values, how much higher you are when you get to the coast. This creates kind of a similar experience, right? And so whether you're on the lagoon or, 3 houses behind the lagoon, you're still pretty psyched you're at the lagoon.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
We look at our builders as our partners, and it's really important for us that they feel like they are getting a good deal and that they're able to sell homes quickly. And this project, actually, most of our builders will tell us they make their biggest premiums on selling homes in this project compared to any other community that you've ever been a part of. So we're really happy about that. They definitely have been happy, and we wish we had more lots to sell in this community. We're sold out now. But what we realized quickly is we reluctantly had to get into the F&B business. We found a partner that would open a restaurant with us in the lagoon, on the perimeter of the lagoon. And then he had some issues going on with his other restaurants with COVID, of course, and abandoned us. So now we're in the F&B business on our own. And we've had to learn, but we have a substantial, this is our first restaurant, we're now opening a second restaurant in the other lagoon, and we have these festivals. And if you have this type of amenity, you have to be ready to be in the operating business of restaurants, because you really can't turn this over to somebody else. You really have to micromanage everything, and there's so many moving parts in terms of events for residents, events for the general public, how the restaurant operates, where people can eat in the lagoon, how they access this. There's so many things that you have to really micromanage it. It's not like you can just have a cafe and turn it over to a third-party operator. That's kind of what we've learned. But that's the first restaurant on a Crystal Lagoon in the United States. We're really excited about it. It's called the Blue Lagoon Bar and Grill. If you're in Houston, I'd love to invite you for a great margarita. So if you've ever heard of that.
Done,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
we'll call later.
Yeah. This is another thing that we're really excited about is the number of events. We're going to do about 300 events at this lagoon this year. That includes like birthday parties and family reunions. But the weddings, I mean, this type of experience, and I think there's music for this, but when you can get married at crystal clear blue water, and you can have basically a destination wedding, driving distance from your house, this really has a big impact on the saleability of this community. These types of things happening all the time. It's just really beautiful events that are family oriented, and there's no kind of amenity that brings families together like a lagoon, because I think John Ryan was saying, you can imagine, and he's the other developer that's building lagoons in the United States and Florida, and families getting together, sitting on lounge chairs, their kids making sandcastles, it's really pretty special, and we're proud of that. And these weddings are also a big part of that type of experience. The other thing the lagoon allows us to do is to increase the sort of highest and best use for the different components, parcels around the lagoon. Like we would never have had high density townhomes in a suburban location if it wasn't for the lagoon. So we have townhomes for sale and townhomes for rent, which are adjacent to each other, and they kind of feed off of each other. So we have one group, which is a fantastic build for rent builder called Uri Man Brent Gibaldo. And we really like them because they're not a merchant developer, they're building them to own them, and so they're basically more dedicated to the quality because they know they're going to own them for the next 10 years, and they get very high quality rents. These are 2,000 square foot townhomes that are renting for $2,300 to $2,900 a month. And then we have History Maker, which is a great builder building for sale townhomes, and they're adjacent to each other. So you drive into the community, you see single towns for sale on the right, towns for sale for rent on the left, and sometimes people will come in together, like a couple, two couples, and say, well, we're not looking to buy, but our friends are looking to buy, we figured to check out the community, we decided we're going to rent. And people are now ready to buy. This provides basically a feeding mechanism where we can get a lot more people into the community faster. They can get used to the community, then they come and decide to buy a home. The single family home on the bottom is also a single family for rent product called Belcara. And so we early on wanted to get into having some single family for our community. So 3 years ago we sold this parcel, and they're doing single family. They hired one of our who's building the product for them, and they're basically building single family homes on 38 by 90 foot lots, and they run like hotcakes. I mean, and so we have a whole pod that they control, and basically it's only their single family for rent. So
Can I ask you a quick question, Uri? The value per acre, by adding the lagoon in, I have to believe that had a substantial impact on the values of the land.
Yeah, well, we looked at, when we added the lagoon, we decided that we were going to go to our builders and ask them if they would accept a $150 front foot increased premium charge for being part of an amenity community of the lagoon. And I think they reluctantly said yes at that time, but they're very happy now. And of course, we started selling that community originally at the original prices were about $900 per front foot, and now we're over the last lots we're over $1,500, $1,600 a front foot. So it's obviously partially the market, what's been happening with bot demand, of course.
But that's a double the price front foot. I mean, that's pretty substantial.
We've been able to make up for the cost of building the amenity with the premium for the lot prices, but yeah. This is our newer lagoon, which we completed at the end of 2019. We're building 4 more, by the way. And this project is 12 acres of water. It holds 24 million gallons. It's a 12-acre lagoon that's part of a 100-acre mixed-use entertainment district. And it has a residential component, so the residents have their own clubhouse. They have their own beaches. But what we did here, which we think has worked out pretty well, is we've isolated a completely different area of the lagoon, which is a quarter-mile away. I believe that's how long this lagoon is. And that's where the public gets to access the lagoon. So they have their own area. And then we also have a third area around the lagoon, which is really for mixed use, for retail dining and entertainment, which is not paid access. And what we did, as you can see here, this is a site plan that kind of shows it. So everything in orange, those are the residential areas. The purple are the kind of future hotels, and the green is retail dining and entertainment, and the blue is our future paid access beach club, which will be open to the general public. And adding this lagoon in Texas City allows us to transform what was basically very suburban land into a high-density mixed-use entertainment district. So we're now going to have some really exciting new product on here, including the Margaritaville branded hospitality product, and kind of new hotels, and even some 7-story condominiums on the lagoon, which we would never have had in Texas City if it wasn't for Crystal Lagoon, of course. This is a rendering of what the retail is going to look like. We have the benefit of being right on Interstate 45, so we have over 100,000 cars a day that are driving. We get our own exit off of the highway, which will be completed in about 18 months. And you can see the beach club in the beginning of the photo, which is the beach club for the general public. And having this type of amenity allows you to create all kinds of other incremental value in terms of different businesses. And you got to be pioneering and think about what you can do. But we created this new sailing club, which is called the National Sailing Club. We bought the URL, National Sailing Club. We got that. And we hired 4 professional seasoned sailors, and they provide an experience not just for the residents, but for the general public. So you can go to nationalsailingclub.com. Whether you're a resident or you're the member of the general public, you can become a member of this facility. It's $25 a month. And we expect that we're going to do over $2 million a year in revenue just from this facility. We have sailboats, paddle boards, electric paddle boards, kayaks, and we have this beautiful new electric ferry that takes people around the lagoon and can be rented for sunset cruises, and it's pretty neat. We actually 2 weeks ago got the opportunity to host the United States Coast Guard, and they did their official training exercises right here at the lagoon and right at the National Sailing Club, which kind of feathering the cap where, hey, we have a great facility that's recognized now by the U.S. Coast Guard. They're going to continue to do their annual training sessions at the lagoon.
What's the location of that one, Gary?
That's in Texas City, yeah. And then I mentioned this idea of a paid access beach club. So believe it or not, we've had over 500,000 people visit the lagoon in the last 12 months. And one of the great benefits of having a lagoon this big is that you can have a separate location where the general public can come and use the beach. This creates a great feeding mechanism for us to sell homes, because everybody that comes in realizes, hey, if I bought a house, I would be home by now, and I could just be using the premium beaches, which are part of the residential areas. But we basically, to test out the paid access model, before we built this massive resort-style beach club like you would see in Miami Beach or somewhere else, we had a pop-up beach festival, which we call Lagoon Fest Texas. And we opened the doors. We had cabanas and lounge chairs and this floating obstacle course. And we had our own F&B operation. This is fantastic, this floating obstacle course.
That was so fun.
Yes, yeah, and just
That is
this.
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Those are cool.
Yeah, it's harder than it looks.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I know.
Yeah. And so this we rent for 20-minute sessions to children. We brought in these electric bumper boats, which also generate revenue. We have this 5-story inflatable slide. And in the last 90 days, we generated $5.3 million in revenue from this pop-up beach club with pop-up beach experience, which we call Lagoon Fest Texas. And Culture Map voted it the #1 destination for people to drive to from Dallas, which we're excited about that. We didn't know that we would get that kind of exposure and interest from people even outside of Texas City. So all of this is, of course, all to help sell homes. So, and of course, it has to pencil and generate revenue. So we have performance for each one of these different businesses, and it's pretty exciting. Here, this is a quick promo about Lagoon Fest Texas. I think it has music, but I don't know if you. So this is the type of advertising you see on social media. We have Float Fest, and we have where people can bring their own paddle boards. We have floating yoga, and we have concerts. We have 15 concerts this summer. We had Jack in the Room. We had one of the top DJs in the world, Paul Oakenfold. We had 10 and a lot of tribute bands, stuff like that. So you get a sense kind of. We have like the amount of marketing information materials that you can create with this type of this type of video. It's amazing. This is just one video. We probably have like 50 of these. So yeah.
Like spring break.
It's like spring break. Yeah, I'll show you. Another thing we also rent a facility. So we for example, we rented this facility to Congressman Crenshaw. So he decided he wanted his own party July 4th at the lagoon. He hired Tim Montana. And we rented the facility. And this can generate a lot of revenue as well because but you have to have a team that's actually doing outgoing sales and so forth. But it's pretty cool. Yeah. So he brought in Tim Montana and he had his own production. And he used this kind of event. He brought in 2,000 people for his party. And he used this event to basically raise money for his campaign. I understand it was very successful for him, even though he spent a lot of money on the production. It was pretty successful for him. We like this idea of like people in the water watching shows and concerts. We've done that again since then. This is a rendering of what the future of public access beach club will be. And that's kind of where we're going, is this idea of this. Okay, now we have a lagoon inside of a master plan community, but what if we had a lagoon that didn't have a master plan community? What if it's kind of like a Top Golf model where you build a lagoon and now you basically charge the general public to come use it? And can you do this successfully? So we're using the numbers that we generated already from Lagoon Fest, Texas, to underwrite and kind of looking at this just like you build an apartment, underwrite it, get it stabilized and sell it. We can do the same thing with these lagoon paid access, independent lagoons. So this is a 40-acre parcel that we control also in Cyprus, where we're gonna have 3,000 to 5,000 people be able to sit on the beaches simultaneously with a 6-acre lagoon. And then we'll be able to sell off high-value parcels to future condo developers, timeshare developers. So lessons learned, 5 things that really surprised us with these amenities over the past few years. I think John mentioned it, the cost to build and maintain the lagoon is much higher than we ever anticipated. And basically we've had to come up with pioneering new ways to generate revenue to be able to justify continuing to build the lagoons, which you see. The amenity is very well adopted by the home buyers. They love it. You have to look at our communities because they're just so different. And when you arrive, the lagoons actually are one thing that they look much better in person than they do in the videos or in the photos.
Yeah,
but and when you see them, they're just awesome. You can't believe it until you see it. The traffic to the builder models is much higher than expected, and it's definitely over 1,000% increase in traffic to builder models. And that we knew it would have a big impact, but not that strong of an impact. And the power of being able to bring the public to the lagoon has helped generate more sales as well. It has to be done the right way so that the residents feel like they're not, they'd like to have their own private place and that they're not being interrupted. But it's really a great way to increase home sales and our ability to expedite and bring higher density sooner really has surprised us that we're entertaining all kinds of new types of product inside the master plan community that we wouldn't have otherwise without the lagoon. So for us, it's been a learning experience, and we're really excited. You can tell we're excited about what we do. So.
No, it's awesome. So I'm going to ask you a couple of tough questions that I hope you'll share. I know the answer to them, but I think it's important to understand. What is the cost per acre to build a lagoon?
Oh, that's a good question. So not including all the amenities on the outside of the lagoon, you're generally looking at about $2 million an acre or more for a 5 to 10 acre lagoon. And that doesn't include all the things that you do on the outside, which can be, so with the 12 acre lagoon that you saw there, we've spent over $40 million on the 12 acre lagoon so far, including the clubhouses and everything that's around it, over $40 million. But the lagoon itself was about 17 million. That includes just, that gives you the ability to have crystal clear water, but doesn't include all the fancy, beautiful landscaping, amenities, trees, buildings, grotto, all kinds of things.
Right.
And then the smaller lagoon, we built a 2-acre lagoon, which of course we built now 4 years ago, when we signed the contract with GC. And that one was about $6 million just for the lagoon. In today's dollars, it's probably $8 or $9 million. Now that's big. It's a smaller lagoon. You have a machine room. You still have a lot of the same components from a bigger lagoon. You just have less perimeter, less concrete.
I know you guys have really kind of great strides too with the HOA too. So in some of the communities in the very beginning, the HOAs were very high, and we've come up with a great financial solution to actually get those down. At Balmoral, I think the HOA was about 150 a month, somewhere around there, which is phenomenal for those kinds of amenities.
What we do with our communities is we charge a $750 per year per household HOA fee, and then we have a lagoon access fee, which is a different fee. $100 a month for these homes. So it's amazing that you can buy a house for $250,000, $300,000, and for $100 a month, you get to take your family to the beach.
But the key to that is subsidizing it with retail and hotel and some of those other areas that pay great premiums to be on that water, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's a huge lesson learned, I think, from some of the beginning ones and today.
Yeah, another thing is to mention is that the lagoons are really parking intensive, so you need to have a lot of parking because people want to come to the lagoon. So to try to fix what we've done in our communities is we build a 12-foot sidewalk through our communities. We call it the Green Bowl Trail, where people can use golf carts. So golf carts are incredibly popular in the communities, and we have no golf course, but it creates this kind of lifestyle that people can drive around. And your last speaker, he was, talking about that. So we've tried to bring it down to the last mile, and inside the amenity village, we also have electric scooters, which is pretty neat. So if you're a resident, you get in the amenity village. Of course, it's a 1 mile radius around the lagoon, so that's a very long way to walk. But we have electric scooters inside of the perimeter of the amenity village, and also golf carts with attendants inside the amenity village. So it's an operating business for sure. Yeah.
And so many communities are really doing the electric bikes, the electric scooters, the golf carts. I would take golf carts particularly, they're extremely popular with 55 plus who aren't feeling as comfortable driving anymore. So there's so much, I love what Tim talked about. It was a great way to open today's session because there's so much really that we can all learn and I think improve in those categories. But this is fascinating. Lessons learned, anything you do different, and I'm gonna go to you, Brent, first. Anything you do different as you look back to your long history with Nixon?
I mean, the impact that the retail had on the community, getting those
That's right.
first couple restaurants open, it really launched the community. And in hindsight, we would have probably done that as soon as possible. But that's really what established us in the larger market and differentiated. Was I didn't fully appreciate the impact of a couple marquee restaurants would have on our citizens' village.
And what about you, Uri? Anything else? I mean, you guys shared a lot of your lessons learned, which was terrific. And
I don't think I have anything else to add to that.
I've actually been to one of your communities, and I've done this probably 3 times in my whole career. I've been doing this for 35 years, where I literally was calling my husband saying, we should buy one of these. Because it really is, you can't describe it until you see it. So. Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Well, thank you guys very much. Please join me in thanking